Hi, welcome to Aim at-one-ment. I'm Adrian and thank you for visiting my channel. So what's it all about? Life, love, the universe, the meaning or meanings of life, God, dimensions beyond the normally visible but beyond the material and tangible, guides, interdimensional beings, advice from wiser beings than us about getting through this life, being a better you, a co-creator, bridging the gap between your prefrontal lobe and the universe. Understanding more about the purpose of life here, life in spirit, and more. Much, or all really, of the content is based on my personal experience. That includes teachings from spirit guides, clearing people and places of unnatural energy, and generally fumbling through this incarnation in this body and in various sets of circumstances. Who am I particularly to be holding forth about life? Nobody famous, nobody eminently degreed or distinguished perhaps, but a watcher, a learner, and a lover of truths. I was born to parents that believed that children chose their parents. They believed in reincarnation, they meditated, they questioned, and they loved sweetly, gentle folk. My father was considered a distinguished gentleman. He also saw water sprites at the seaside. My mother was a writer, editor of magazines, and a published author. Love was her mantra, and where Dad used one word where most used three, Mum blithely held forth. As the last of 7 kids, and because of a series of difficult circumstances, I got away with pretty much everything, and I was often left ungoverned and alone too. I've learned a lot about being alone. It's not bad. It gives space and gives perspective. I also learned about the world beyond the physical. I spoke with and received teachings from high guides that spoke through a late friend and mentor. I learned also about deceased trapped spirits bound to this earth plane through lack of understanding of a life beyond, about other unseen things that affect and afflict places and people, and how to clear those places and people. This education, way outside the norm, helped me to see through what the Hollywood movie The Matrix conveyed, the illusory world that most buy into, to understand parts about death, as did the different ways that I encountered death in my life, from lingering to sudden suicide to sedation, with all of the ramifications and domino effects of each passing. I learned that we all have spiritual gifts within us that can elevate the earth's cumulative consciousness. I fall in love with that potential in people and hope my perceptions may help you to strive for your true potential, to be responsible towards your gifts, and to be a redeemer, not merely hoping for redemption. So how did I get here? I used to be a radio presenter, then became a journalist of sorts. Talking shit, writing shit, it's all the same to me. So I've chosen this as my way of writing. And many puzzle pieces that were previously scattered coalesced for this portal, let's call it, to come about. I have knowledge and I have teachings to pass on to those seeking such information. I was a member of a spiritual circle for many years, which was by the guides' invitation only. We talked directly to the guides when this medium would enter a deep trance state. She'd be absent in mind and spirit and have no recollection of events, while guides would directly control her body. In other words, there was no interpretation or defining of messages, no channeling. It was conversing, as you might with a teacher or a mentor. Some of us took up what is perhaps flippantly called Ghostbusting on a full-time basis for a number of years. Here, importantly, I think, there were no lessons from or discussions with spirit guides about the work, though certainly there was guidance and protection from above, day to day and at night. In other words, we acted of our own volition, rowed our own boat, as it were, successfully, miraculously. And for us, the miracle was that God deemed it fit for His power to work through us to effect changes that I feel were often more wonderful for us than for the people we helped. We packed it in After 6 years or so, the weight of expectations from people in other spheres of their lives became a drain, and life moved on. I can't say that the work for me has ever really stopped. It just hasn't been in the public domain for some time. I have, in my work as a travel writer for a decade or more, cleared many places. What are you doing here? Well, I hope that you're here to find information that'll help you live the questions of your human life and to find answers to some of those questions. I hope you find what you need. I'll just go into ghostbusting a bit more, although I have gone into it in great detail in another post. I know what it means to be held down, and I probably would not be talking to you at all if somebody, hi, in case you're watching, had not, and not for the first time, set out to destroy me using witchcraft. So before that, I was fearful of bringing my thoughts and some teachings into the public domain because people may wish me harm. I've had an email address hacked, and that was stressful, I thought. But anyway, having dispelled such an attack, and with what I've learned from that, it makes this easy. So I can thank the person who put a hex on me. What doesn't kill you definitely makes you stronger, and definitely made me wiser and better at what I do. So no, the things I've mentioned are not just in the mind. If that were the case, we wouldn't have been so busy, nor had such success. I can recall not recognizing a woman who came to our healing rooms, someone for whom we had performed an exorcism the week before. She was transformed, as if a light had turned on within her. So it could be exhilarating and a reward in itself. But we were also asked to clear places that were not affected, where people were casting about for a reason that things weren't going as they wished, or people wanted their houses blessed. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, I guess, but I think we'd be transgressing other people's boundaries. I never used to tell people when I was a travel writer that I cleared the place when there was something wrong with it. But I eventually became bold enough to tell the patrons, whether it be the manager or the owner, whether they were bemused or not. I felt they should know, since the guest house or the lodge or hotel would feel better, and it may attract more visitors. I should have asked for commission. One such place was the most haunted place I've yet been, with a highly skeptical owner. I couldn't sit through his introductory welcome. I was so uncomfortable with all the heavy negative energy in the place. He's now writing about what he calls the curse of the Klokkelan in his memoirs. I'll be very interested to read that, since I often don't recall what I said to whom, about what. It doesn't come from me, it just comes through me. What also comes through me is a different type of healing. I help people in a mental, emotional, spiritual way. And I do this remotely using a name and a photograph. I find the distance, the remoteness actually gives me more clarity, more perspective. And I take that way back to when someone did mental healing on me decades ago. And also did it, I was in the same place, but not in the same room. And it provides, for want of much better words, can't think of the words, some clarity and detachment. So what I do is I'm able to tune into where a person is at with themselves, emotionally, psychological, spiritually, and help to balance any imbalance and to advise them perhaps on things they need to do. I first practiced on people I know, actually, without telling them. And then I began to tell them, and I found that I was always spot on. So some were in denial. That's when I knew I was really spot on. Their reactions were dead giveaways. So of late, I've been doing a bit of ghostbusting and mental healing for friends who I haven't seen in decades in New Zealand, as well as for people that come into contact with. It's almost as if people come into contact with them for the very purpose that they can get help. The results have been, for them, amazing. It hasn't been straightforward, since I've had to circumvent some beliefs and speak to people who don't know who I am, who are in the middle of something terrifying or dramatic. But the proof has been in the pudding. So how do I or we clear? And I say we because we like to work, when we're doing ghostbusting, in pairs, and that you can find out more about in a separate post. But if I'm doing it alone, because often circumstances dictate that, the person must sit, feet flat on the floor, legs uncrossed, upright in a chair, and legs uncrossed so as not to block any power that may flow through the body. And with eyes closed, whether I'm in the room with them or not, I would, if I was present, put my hands around their head, and whether I'm present or not, they will normally feel God's power flowing through and out of my hands. And they would feel warm around the head. Often other symptoms, such as a fluttery chest. It really depends how someone is affected, how badly they're affected. And while the power is flowing, I or we get information as to how a person is affected or how much a person is affected. Observers usually see the energy, the bad energy, I will say, or the negativity being released through the top of the head, similar to a heat haze coming off a hot road. Possessions, that's a different story. It's dramatically different. But once again, please check out my other posts about ghostbusting. It is always revealing how open or closed people are. And I get that information. Sometimes it takes a little while for the power to thaw through some resistance, and that's normally fear. And I have farted against thunder. I once tried to help a person who was going through a really tough time. Really tough. And we'd already had a robust discussion in which I was told, I just want to tell you that whatever you're about to say, I don't believe the same. Nevertheless, the person consented to be cleared. But during the clearing, I could straight away feel that it wasn't going to have the effect it would have on somebody more open to God's power. And that's kind of how we work. We help anybody as long as they believe that God can help them. And not everybody does. And I don't always do mental healing. For example, when the COVID lockdown started, I stopped doing healing because it occurred to me that people sometimes have to go through stuff and figure stuff out for themselves. You can get in touch with me regarding mental healing and clearing of negativity. My email is in the description box below. If you find value in what I'm sharing, please give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell too, so you don't miss anything. And please remember that you are a sliver of divinity. Keep your sliver shining and reflecting back to God and to all life, and let no one dull your shine.